not sure it gets talked about enough in sort of the younger circles. But I want to touch on something. So you have sort of like high school and college athletes, and then you have some professional or on the bubble professional athletes. What is the difference in sort of the mindset between like a high school or like a high schooler that sort of age versus like the on the bubble slash professional athlete? Like when you work with them, what's sort of the different, not just in the skill set itself, obviously, but in the mindset of how they work?
Not always true, but I'd say the number one thing I've seen with the athletes that have come through our doors is that a semi-professional or professional athlete knows how to put in the work on their own to get the job done. A high school athlete does not know that yet. And that's just the nature of it. They haven't
Mhm.
been anywhere. I mean, they've played high level, but they haven't made it to pro, so they don't know what to do. They'll do it, they just don't know what. And so they tend to overtrain doing things that aren't actually going to make them better than what they already are. So by that, I mean, again, in the example of soccer, you might have some of the high school athletes spending time kicking the ball and not working with other people on how to move the ball faster as a unit. They don't know how to make a first touch more efficient instead of making two touches or two steps into one. But they'll spend their time practicing stationary kicks in a goal or cone dribbles that they've already mastered. A high school athlete needs to think faster. They're already going to be slower physically because their body hasn't matured, but the pace of the game is faster the higher level that you go. So you have to train your body how to think and make decisions better. And a pro or a semi-pro, they have already experienced that. It's almost like, and I don't know video games, but it's almost like getting a PS5 already, and you're so excited, but now you've played it. So it's not as exciting anymore. And they actually struggle with confidence and love of the game. So you have to teach with more acceptance of where they're at and almost just like be a support system, because when you're at that level, it's your job to play well, so you're constantly criticized for not playing well constantly. And there's so many other pressures out there that you often see athletes turn to habits that aren't good for them, habits that distract them from playing at optimal levels, drinking. Um, they often get depressed. They're doing marijuana, things like that, and but it's part of how the culture is and what an athlete goes through. And I think people don't understand that. They don't understand that pressure and what it's like, because you're never good enough. Just very, very few times you're good, but you're never good enough. There's always the next level. And so it's almost like the higher you get, the more you are difficult on yourself and you just constantly think negative. In high school, you're trying to make it. So there's all this hope going around. And when you're older, it's not as much about hope. It's like pulling yourself out of the gutter over and over again. And I mean, I don't know if that answers the question about difference in mentality, but again, with the players that I've seen come through our door and what Pablo has done a really good job of, and what our staff tries to do is be more supportive and be a friend to the players and like hear them, because so often they don't get to be heard because coaches don't care. It's not their job to care. It's their job to win games.
Yeah.
Um, so people lose the fun side of it. They lose the passion, and they forget how to like dig deep because they're just beaten down all the time.
Yeah. And their careers on the line oftentimes as well. That's added pressure. Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like especially for so like the guys who go professional when they're young, late teens, early 20s, it's hard to find yourself when you're in that environment of always needing to you need to do better, you need to do this better, and it's hard to.
You have young people taking your spot anyway. So again,
Mhm,
like when you're younger, there's all this hope because you're still trying to make it. You're trying to
mhm.
move up. You're trying to take somebody's spot. When you're old, you not old, but when you're a veteran of the game, you're
Mhm,
trying to protect your spot. So instead of becoming aggressive, you become defensive. And anybody that's played sports knows when you're defensive and you're playing not to lose, you're not going to be playing well.
mhm.
And you play very much in your head and you start to overthink and you lose that sense of feel, which is really important for an athlete.
Yeah.